Alrighty. Alright, so we're kind of starting a new unit here. Now the good news is a lot of this is repeat stuff. Like after I kind of got done with this, I was like, I probably could have just made this a 10-minute Edpuzzle video and skipped this chapter because it's a lot of stuff that we've gone over, like exercise phys, TNT of weight training. So that's kind of the basic things here about what you're responsible for as the coach when it comes to the physical conditioning of your athletes. Now, it's interesting. I had a student or a player yesterday. He's like, are we going to do any more conditioning? I'm like, we have a 100-minute practice. Like, that's 20 minutes shorter than most. We don't got time to just make you run suicides or whatever they like to call them. So I told him, no, I tend to do run the offense on this end, run the offense on that end. And I'm actually using 2 basketball courts. So I have them start in the center court, and then they go over to the other one and come back. And I'll have 3 groups just over and over and over and over again running the offense. And like, that's my conditioning. So you're going to run that for 5 minutes straight, but you don't realize that it's conditioning. So one of the interesting things that I like to add to my practices that my players are like, huh? I don't get it. So yeah, we're going to do kind of principles of physical training for the next couple of weeks here. And there's all the big things that we're going to learn that you'll need to know for your quiz. So all sports can be improved with physical training. So that could be any type of physical training, whether it's lifting weights, it could be running to get better, your golf, archery, even shooting sports. Lifting weights is going to make you better at those things. I mean, just think about trying. Has anybody done archery before? Oh man, I so want to do another archery day in individual sports. But being able to hold that bow out for a long period of time and not wobble makes a huge difference. So any shooting sport, I noticed that my golf game got better when I got into weight training class. I gained like 15 pounds in weight training class because it forced me to be in the gym 3 times a week as a 20-year-old guy. All of a sudden, I was hitting the ball 15 yards farther. I had to change all my club numbers on how far I hit them. And it's all because I was in that class. I was afraid that I was going to my arms were going to get bigger and it was going to change the plane of my swing. Nope, no problems, not at all. Physical fitness is not a permanent thing. So like if you either use it or you lose it. So eventually if you're lazy and don't work out, and the older you get, the faster that happens. So I say our bodies are marvelous moving machines, especially when we train them, because they can adapt to stuff. So, all right, I have some questions to see if you and a partner can answer. All right, tell the person next to you, see how much you remember from anatomy and physiology class. All right, how many bones are in the body? Anybody remember? Huh? Did you look it up or did you actually remember? Nice. 206. How many joints do we have? That's probably not one you probably remember. They don't make that a big. Well, look at your hand. How many joints are there? It's like 3 per finger, so there's 15 per hand. About the same in your toes, about 60 in your hands and feet only. How many vertebrae do you have? About 15. Shoulders, elbows, knees, hips, ankles. The book says about 100. Ooh, here's one you might have gotten. How many muscles? Anybody remember? That would have been in physiology class. Pretty close. It was 436. Oh, 640. I had it backwards. I had 36 switched. So, it's pretty awesome that your body can do what it does with that many moving parts. That's just nuts. So the book says it takes approximately 30 muscles to return a tennis serve, to dismount a pommel horse, or to catch a fly ball. Didn't know that. Sounded interesting. So there are some components of physical fitness. We're going over this really fast because we just are going through this in exercise phys and other classes. So this is just kind of an overview. So you can take your quiz tonight. So you're going to have any energy type fitness. So those are all the things that you get energy from, where heat comes from, you consume it. We go over that in great detail, and I think they're going to go over it more in this one. And then any muscular kind of fitness that we would have. All right, what were the 3 energy systems of the body? It's another quick review there. Oh, come on. A few of you are in exercise phys. We went over this like 2 weeks ago. Well, maybe 3. It was like the 3rd or 4th day. Probably week 2. And no, they don't say it on there. That's the first one. Oxidative. What's the other one? Glycolic. Glycolysis, glycogen. First is the ATP, PCR that's stored in your muscles. Then the glycolysis takes the things quickly, and that's like the first 15 seconds, then the rest of the minute. So that's that first 2-minute thing here. Then you switch over to the oxidative system, and that's where you get your aerobic energy from. So yeah, there's a quick review there. So I like this kind of thing here. As a coach, you are granted the opportunity to prepare beautifully engineered bodies of your athletes to move great distances, lift incredible amounts of weight, and perform a variety of motor skills with exquisite precision. Anybody go to the basketball game last night? A couple of you were there, I think I remember seeing. Some of the precision that our opponents had shooting 3-pointers in the second half was slightly disappointing to our defense, but it was amazing how they could just rise up and, yeah. I was like, I miss being able to jump like that. Actually, I could never jump like that. I could just barely dunk. You can take advantage of this opportunity by learning more about the body and how to train it, which we have entire classes about that. All right, and here's the terms as defined by this book. Now, I know we've got other ways of doing this and more detailed things. These are more generalized terms here. So muscular fitness is the ability to meet the demands of your sport for strength in all the details. Your strength is how much force you can put into something in a single effort. Endurance would be to repeat the same thing over and over again. And we talk about speed in several different ways in different classes. Motor learning is the most interesting one. So you have your reaction time, how quick somebody can react. I've got to find the sports science one for reaction time, where they were testing how fast a cornerback in football could react to the hike. And the reaction time of the average Joe host guy versus a pro corner, and how much faster they were just reacting to the ball being hiked. It was just incredible. It was 5 times quicker. It was 0.15 of a second is how quick the professional was, and the average person was 0.6 or 7. So it was over half a second for when it hiked to go. Is how quick it was. It's wow, what a difference. So speed is usually movement time, how fast somebody can sprint. Quickness is how fast somebody can react. You see, your muscular power would be how fast you can do something quickly. Power is strength and speed combined together. And there's actually a formula for that. So power is vital in a lot of things. For example, a high jumper, a baseball hitter, a 100-meter sprinter, and a tennis serve. Muscular flexibility. I was messing around with that yesterday with Mr. Lee there. He was doing sit and reach stuff for his students. So I was seeing how far I could go. Mostly to see if I could go farther than the teacher, which I had him by about 5 inches. He said he can only go about 9 inches. He's not very flexible. I think I had 16 on my right and I had 14 on my left. But he was telling me one of my basketball players can do like 20 inches past his foot. I was like, yikes! Now I know I've had gymnasts that went off the chart on those things, but those were ones that are stretching 4 days a week in practice and have their over splits, so of course they're going to be super flexible. One other random flexibility story. Had some gymnasts, these sisters went to a chiropractor, and their mom was telling me this story, and she had 3 daughters, all of them were on the gymnastics team. I had 2 of them when I was coaching. And this girl, as they were trying to stretch their leg, and they're like, okay. And so they pulled their leg up and they put the leg next to their shoulder as they were trying to do some chiropractic things. Like, this might be difficult. This might hurt. And they're like, okay, never mind. We're going to have to find a different way. You're too flexible for that. So some chiropractic move they were trying to do, they couldn't do by twisting the body because the girls were too flexible. So they had to pull up the little, the actuator things. My best friend's a chiropractor too, so that's where I get a lot of that from. Balance is obviously a detail there. They define it here slightly differently than most of our books. They have static balance would be in one place. Dynamic balance would be while moving. So being able to stay in balance in gymnastics, diving, figure skating while you're spinning in circles. Agility is the ability to start and stop. And then here's all the things that you can do. I'll just let you read those. Most of these are self-explanatory that we've gone over a lot. Is there any of them there that you don't think of normally as a part of training or practice? Mm-hmm. If you are in shape, Missy and I worked out during COVID because we had literally nothing else to do, 6 days a week because nothing was open and school was done by noon. We're like, what do we do? So we went and worked out, and then we conceived him, and she recovered quicker, I would say, because she was in good shape after pregnancy, because she was in shape before. So when you have a traumatic injury, rolled ankles, you're going to recover quicker if you're in better shape than if an average Joe that sits in a pew at church rolls their ankle. It's only going to take a couple weeks. Anybody see I saw Aaron Rodgers was walking 2 months after, with weight on his foot, 2 months after an Achilles surgery. I don't know what magical medicine thing they're doing on him, but 2 months after ankle surgery, I was still off my foot. He's walking without crutches or anything. He just walked into the arena. He was limping a little bit, but it's yikes. So a whole bunch of physical training there. I do remember saying in exercise phys, or they're not sure if you have more fibers or if the size of the muscle fibers get better. Probably the muscle fibers, but they can't actually test it because that would mean cutting somebody's arm open and cutting that muscle fibers. So you're not exactly going to be doing that on purpose. They've done it on animals and mice and stuff. So a whole bunch of things there that can happen. I don't know if there's going to be any major things there. So your role as the coach is to be knowledgeable about sports physiology, which is one reason you're taking this class and probably this major, is so that you can help either your players or your clients become better at what they do. So knowing all the physiological things and all the training methods are going to be huge to you as a coach, and what you choose to do during practice or during lifting sessions. I'm sure you varsity athletes have specific things that your coach should be telling you to do during your weight training times in your off seasons. Instead of just go work out, he should have specifics. I at least know the basketball guys were telling me last year that they had a whole chart that they were supposed to do. Most of them didn't do it, but they had it listed. So then also you can use that knowledge to determine what physical demands your sport needs. So there are a couple ways to get started there. So you would have ways of evaluating, and we've gone over a couple of those over the years in your classes. Body composition things, different fitness things. The VO2 test up there is kind of a fun one. Any kind of muscular fitness, combine type testings. Make sure you pay attention to any guidelines. You really don't want to have a player get injured while you're doing exercise testing. So make sure you have a procedure that you are following, which would have, like if you're doing a 1 rep max, you would start them at like 30% of their max that they say they can do, doing 10. Then you'll move them up to 60 and do 5. Then you'll do 75% and you'll do 3. Then you do the 1 rep max, rather than having them walk straight in and just like, all right, do your 1 rep max. Having those kinds of procedures whenever you do test your athletes is really good. And then you'll use those things that you get from testing your athletes to train your program or train your athletes. And then here's just kind of an interesting, depending on the fitness level of your athletes, and you want to hopefully have them to be as high a fitness level as you can with optimal amount of training. And you could actually get to the point of overtraining, but doubtful depending on your type of role. In little Adventist schools, you're probably not going to overtrain them. All right, so talk to somebody next to you. What fitness tests, preferably find someone who's doing the same sport approximately as you. Find what fitness tests would you do for your teams? At the start of the season, at the end of the season, kind of basically, what fitness tests would you want to do? Talk to somebody who's doing something similar to you. Go. All right, JT, what did you guys come up with? What would you test and what sport?
So we chose volleyball, and there's different ways that we could test. So you could do either testing the vertical, we could do anaerobic testing, so like sprinting back and forth for times, and then we want to do flexibility testing as well.
I like that.
Pretty impactful for your needs.
Zach, what did you guys talk about?
We just talked about doing a mile run for like a good baseline, because his sport is soccer, so making sure you kind of have that endurance when you're running out there.
Okay. Lillian, what did you guys talk about? Okay. Val, what'd you come up with? Mm. Mm-hmm. What does Shane have you guys do for fitness testing at the beginning? I've heard it's horrible.
So I've been here since freshman year. So it's all been different every year. So the first year he tried to do 3 tests and you have to pass 2 out of 3. But like it was actually killer because a lot of the girls on my first year they didn't play soccer. It was like the first team, whatever. So we only did 1 fitness test and no pass. And then the second year, actually I think 1 girl passed my freshman year. But the second year, he did the same thing. Oh wait, I'm sorry. He did 2 tests my freshman year and then 1 test. Usually the test is like, it's not like the big test, but it's like he puts out cones and then you have to run this one this many times and then this length this many times, this length this many times, and then you have to like do it again like twice or something. And then another test that he really, really likes that we do constantly is 100 yards. So we do 10 100-yard sprints, and it has to be under 15 seconds or something. So 15 seconds there, and then you have to jog back the rest of the minute to get back. That's your recovery. And then as soon as you get to the line, then you have to do it again. And yeah, so only 1 person passed my sophomore year, or 2 people passed my sophomore year. And then this year, it wasn't really like he wasn't like strict on us because we had a lot of freshmen, and he changed the test to you're gonna start at 18 seconds, and you have to sprint 18 seconds there, and then you have to go down at each second. So until like 15.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories from soccer players about the physical testing that he does just to make the team. All right. So this is what your assignment's going to be about. Is there's 6 training variables. So you're going to have like the choice of exercise that a coach could pick. You don't want to have just one exercise. You don't want to make them run for an hour straight running the mile on the track when you're doing a football team. That's just not, or volleyball. You're not going to want to, your choice of what exercise you have them do makes a big difference. Your order of exercise, especially in a weight training situation, you want to do big muscles first, then small muscles. So you want to kind of go big to smaller, big muscle group combination lifts, and then working smaller muscles. So you're not going to want to do a bench press, you're not going to want to do bicep curls, tricep extensions, and then go over and try to do the bench press because you've already burned your arms out to try to make that lift. So you would want to do bench first, which is going to work the big muscles, and then the stabilizers ones in your arms. Then you work your triceps, biceps, wrists. That's a huge one that people don't realize. Like if you're doing something like, wrist extensions, that kind of thing, and then go try to do a big lift, you're like, oh, your grip is just gone because you've already worked those muscles. Your intensity that you have them do you have them do it all out the whole time? I really like your concept of starting at 18 seconds, so you actually start slower and then speed it up as the test goes on. So that's increasing the intensity of the exercise. Your volume would be how much, so it's either how much you're lifting, how long they're doing it. So increasing volume for running would be increasing how long they do it for. Your frequency, how many days a week, how many times do you do that test? Or it could be how many times do you have them do that lift? Are you doing 4 sets or are you doing 2 sets? And that also might be on how frequent you can do it and how much time you have. So, and then the length of the rest period in between. Did you run that test more than once in a day? No? Okay. I was like, because sometimes they'll have you like do it at the beginning of practice, run the whole thing, and do it again at the end. For my stuff up here with the high schoolers, I would do a Sweet 16, which is just side to side on the basketball court. I would do it at the beginning of practice. I'd do it somewhere. I'd work them out a little more. Then we do something in the middle. Then I would do plyometrics near the end, and then I'd have them run it one more time. And on the third one, I'm not actually going to test. I'm not actually timing them. I tell them I am, but I'm not. I'm like, all right, see if you can still get it under a minute and go. And I don't actually push the button. I just let them. Because it's just to get more of that. And sometimes they work hard, sometimes they don't. But on the third one, I'm not pushing them too hard at that point. Here's a really good yearly training plan that's very basic, but it kind of gives you a good overview of what you would do. So during the off season, you don't want your players to gain weight. A really good example of that is Zion Williamson for the Pelicans. That dude cannot control his weight. He comes in every season 30 pounds overweight. And actually the MVP, the Joker that just won a championship last year, he's another one that would come back from the offseason overweight every year. And it took until he got serious about it before they won a championship. You want to let them recover, let them train at like 40 to 50% of their training level if they're one of the gym rats that want to be in there all the time. And then cross-train, try other sports in your off season. So like the soccer team having a basketball team for intramurals. That was a great way of cross-training to maintain kind of your interest in just sports in general. During your preseason, you're going to start ramping things up. You're going to start working on technical and tactical skills. Early season, so this would be like your first games. Having some of that high intensity stuff, maybe that would be before your first game. Continuing to refine those skills, and then during the season, you're going to hopefully have them ramped up all the way to their highest fitness level, as sharp a tactical skills as you can, and really work on the mental side of your sport. Most of you guys know the 3 main parts of a workout is warm-up, training, cool-down. I will admit that with my younger players, I tend to not do as much on the warm-up or cool-down. I do a very brief warm-up. It's like going across the court back and forth like 8 times and doing different things, and that's my warm-up. I don't go too crazy. I've never had a high schooler pull something. Now, on the other hand, me, now at 35 years old, when I come in on Sunday morning and want to play basketball, and they say, do you want to jump in? Like, oh, we're ready to go. You want to play the first game? Nope. I am going to stretch. I'm going to warm up. I'm going to get my muscles moving before I go in and try to play a full-out basketball game, because I know that if I go and work out, or if I go jump straight in, I'm going to feel that first game for the rest of the day and maybe part of the next. So younger players, it's not as important, I have found. Now, your book is going to tell you that everybody needs to warm up, cool down. But as the younger they are, probably the shorter I make those warm-ups and cool-downs. The older, though, like if you start training clients or having physical therapy, you're definitely going to be doing more warm-up and cool-down to try to rehabilitate those injuries. So it's like the older they get, the longer those periods need to be. And here's a whole bunch of information. Give you a couple seconds to look at that. It is in the book, and there's probably a quiz question on it. Wow, you cannot read that up there. I should have made that bigger. This guy says the warm-up has 3 phases. So you're going to have your aerobic, stretching, and tactical skills. So practicing your specific exercises. That's where like I'm going to be jogging to one side and pushing off, pushing off, pushing off, pushing off. Those are some of those tactical or technical kind of things that you would do. I definitely jog down the floor a couple of times, stretch against the wall, and mine's always ankle. So, I mean, I'm pressing my ankle up in different angles against the wall so that it's not going to hurt. I stretch my hamstrings, making sure I don't pull anything. Groin, ooh, you do not want to pull those. You'll be out for a long time. And then cooling down, you just want to have, after you've worked out hard, having them do some sort of jog, and they call it the aerobic. Again, this is when they say they have 2 phases. I think these are quiz questions, these different phases of warm up and cool down. So your cool down has an aerobic phase and a stretching phase. I love those foam rollers. I don't know if you guys have used those. I'm a big fan of foam rollers after you've worked out. So you, as the coach, are responsible for educating your athletes about the program and then conducting the program. And you'll find you'll get more buy-in if you explain why. And that's where I'm probably not as good at. I mean, when I had a player asking me, why aren't we doing conditioning? Because he didn't think he was getting any. I thought that they were doing it. I just didn't tell them. So sometimes it is better to explain your methods and so that they know. Oh man, ooh, here's another good one here. What is specificity in training? Just go real quick here. Anybody remember? It's in the word. Specifics. Specifics in your training. So what are you going to, are you training jump shots? Are you training sprints? Overload, you don't want to go too far. You can't, but also overload could be you are going to try to overload the muscles so that they recover and get stronger. So progression, you're going to want to get harder and harder as the season goes, or especially your preseason. Diminishing returns is going to be if you use it or lose it. Variation, you just want to not do the exact same thing over and over again. Your players will get bored, their muscles will get bored, and they'll kind of plateau if you don't vary things up. Your reversibility, that's the use it or lose it. So diminishing returns is this over here, is that eventually their fitness level, the farther they go, they're going to get to the point where they don't get improve. So just make sure you're not that coach that's going to always expect them to improve, even though they've been doing it forever, because eventually they will get to kind of the maximum of their genetics. You could see that in the basketball game last night. We got some very short guards on our team. And, I mean, genetic limits say they're probably not going to get a lot of rebounds against guys that are 6'5" and above when they're 5'7" to 5'10". So those are just kind of like, make sure you keep your levels as a coach. Don't expect the 5'7" guy to be getting 10 rebounds a game. Last bit here. Take care of yourself as the coach. I have definitely been guilty of this one. When the season gets going farther and farther and farther, I tend to go on away trips and you eat whatever garbage food you can find that tastes really good and has lots of salt in it. You know, stopping it in and out on the way back from a basketball game, so good. But if you do that a lot as the coach, you're going to start you're not going to be taking care of yourself, getting enough sleep. I'm making sure to get to bed by 10. This guy's not allowing that to happen the last 2 nights. I love you, my child. Go to bed. It's because he can crawl out of his crib now. So you lay him down to go to bed and he goes, nope. Crawls out and comes running out into the living room. You're like, this is not good. So trying to, one thing I like to do is because we have 13 guys and we usually have 2 coaches. So I can make 3 teams of 5 if both coaches participate. So in a lot of my conditioning drills at the beginning there where I'm doing 5 on no defense, so they're just running the offense, I try to join in on that, and that gets me some exercise. So making sure that I'm at a fitness level where I can be a part of those drills. Also, just a quick workout that you can do right before practice or right after practice, I have found is really good. Being able to just do push-ups, squats, burpees, and that's all I do. And, do 15 of each thing just to keep my fitness level up. I really don't want to be that coach, and I'm borderline right now. And you don't want to be the overweight coach that's out there like, okay, guys, run faster. I'm like, no, I do not want to be that coach. And the book had some interesting ones here. Reasons coaches say that they're not active, or they're not being physically active. Too busy coaching and working. I don't like training after all those years of training as an athlete. I've heard that one personally. I've had the mindset that that you only exercise to get in shape to play sports. I haven't thought about exercising to be a good role model for my players. I want to be in better shape, but I can't get started. So those are all ones that are there. So just basically do your best to be a good example and a role model off the court as much as you are on the court. That is all I have. Apparently we didn't have Tigger today giggling on that one like he normally does.